Who's your vice?
I think I'm right here.
Who's your vice?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Do you have a paper agenda for me? Todd is.
Oh, we're on, y'all.
Yeah, no, he had his last trip. Was it stays
I always need that to me too.
Call me the other day, matter of fact.
Yeah, Todd, you gotta move.
Vice Chair.
Todd,
Y'all took me up for everything, so I don't know what I do.
We didn't take him off everything.
We've been on that since January.
One committee.
Let me see if I can pull it up, because I couldn't pull up none of my attachments on that last one.
I thought I just sat on this tip.
Gotta take my call.
Fix your microphone.
it's like a lopsided one.
I can't pull it up.
Everybody's district.
I hate that. I just look at this.
I'm going to call to order the August 6, 2018 Transportation Committee meeting. All members are present. Councilman Claude will lead us in the prayer.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you for this ability to gather and serve the people. Lord, we continue to ask as we get into the heart of the worst part of the hurricane season to please have your hand on Ascension Parish in the Gulf South region and spare us. Lord, we ask special prayers for the Harris family for the death they've had, and the sister of Miss Celeste Harris, our employee. Lord, we also ask that you look upon the Humphrey family of Sanamon and have your prayers for Mr. Gene Humphrey, for the loss of Miss Harriet. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask Mr. Cluite the next time he prays for the Gulf South region to include South Carolina where my daughter lives?
Yes.
I'd like
Do
to
we
keep
need that
them off
form
of
of
her,
a
too.
ordinance?
Well, being a southern guy, I've considered them part of the Gulf South region.
Okay.
We're gonna swing up the East Coast a little bit. I'm
Swing
good
up
with
the
it.
East Coast just a little bit.
Lord, I amend my prayer.
Thank you, right?
Do we have
Second that,
an amendment and a second to amend the prayer?
to include the Charleston, South Carolina area.
Got to see if the Pope approves amending prayers. I'm not sure how this works.
They've been hit hard on the East Coast several times in the last couple of years.
Moving on to item number 3, public comment period. If anybody would like to comment, please fill out a card and come bring it up to Darla. She'll get it, 3 minutes. Item number 4, committee chairman's report. All I have to report is I'm going to, I hate to do this, remove public transportation discussion. Item number 6, one of our key speakers on that, the person that requested it was unable to make it again tonight. I'll just move it to the next meeting.
The gentleman's here from us, from,
I didn't know that. Well, actually, then I'll keep it on because, no, that's fine. I didn't realize you were here. So we'll keep that on because it's something we need to start discussing in this parish. Other than that, I have nothing to add, so I'll move on to item number 4, acceptance of the minutes of the July 25th, 2018 meeting as written.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert. No objections, so moved. Now, I'm sorry, item number 6, public transportation discussion. Sir, if you'd like to come up, we're bringing this up just to start a discussion on this topic, and please introduce yourself, and I'm going to give you more than 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Commissioner District 7, Mr. Laurel.
Yes.
My name is Jamie Setz, and I'm with the Capital Region Planning Commission. We're the MPO that serves the 5 parish area and also the planning district that serves the 11 parishes in the Florida parishes, plus y'all, Iberville, Point Capee. I'm here today because, we do public transportation planning for the multimodal area. And so we talk about rail, we talk about buses, we talk about cars, we even talk about planes every once in a while. And of course, the ports are very important to us. And so I was invited to kind of talk to y'all, and I think it's kind of more of an open discussion, maybe? Is that kind of what it is? I mean, what exactly would you like to hear about transit?
I know personally, one of the issues that I've had and I've looked at is we have a tremendous amount of people from all parts of the parish and even outside the parish that are traveling to specific employment locations, certain plants. I know one of the issues that we have constantly is, we have too much traffic. How can we reduce that traffic? One of the things that I've seen is if we can do some sort of ride sharing to a specific plants, maybe to a group of plants, everybody parks in one location. One of the benefits I see is, you talk about a light cycle. If you can take 20 pickup trucks off the road that are all heading to one plant, we've sped up the light cycle by one. If we can do that to 40, it could be twice. Additionally, people don't have to drive. I know from my area, Prairieville, if they're driving to CF Industries, you're talking about a 30-mile ride there and a 30-mile ride back. At $2.50 in gas, you could save potentially $10 a day if you don't have to do that. That is an after-tax savings of about $2,500 per individual. Now, I know if I'm an employee in a plant and I've got the opportunity to have $2,500 more dollars in my pocket at the end of the day by doing some sort of ride sharing, I'd want to look into it. And that's what I'm here to talk about and to learn a little bit about if that's possible.
Well, yeah, let me. I've been in this position for 5 years now. It's amazing how long it's been, and we've had extensive conversations about that. Probably the most salient one was about 3 years ago when the Crisis Coalition formed. It formed specifically to look at those industry congestion problems that were choking LA 30, LA 1, and some of it all the way down to the Sunshine Bridge. And just to give you an example of how that conversation went, I've always been a big fan of van pooling, and one of the potential solutions was to upgrade the ferry landings at Plaquemines Point and then give preemption or give priority to the vans that came over. And man, the lawyers at the businesses threw up all kind of objections to that on whether the clock starts on labor time when you get in a company van pool or not. And then subsequently to that, and this is where I don't have all the information, the Greater Baton Rouge Industrial Alliance hired the TJC group, I think it was Tim Johnson's consulting group, to look into some of these issues. And I think you know that a lot of the people that are at plants are contract workers, and the contractors really don't like their employees mingling a lot. It gives and this is all third hand now at this point in time because I've never seen the report. But what they said is that when their workers sit next to another worker and they find out that other worker's doing the same job for even 25 cents more an hour, they jump ship. And so the whole issue of getting the contract workers, because we were trying to do that. Cabela's every day has a huge parking lot, basically empty during the workday. We tried it with LaBerge to do that down there. Matter of fact, that might be one of the places we start parking rides is at LaBerge because they're very interested in people parking in their parking lot and then looking at that traffic on LA 30 and saying, hey, maybe I'll sit here for half an hour. Well, they're not going to sit in their car. They're going to go sit in the casino. So we've looked at that, but I was also talking to my employee, Adam Tatar, who's our transportation specialist, and he reminded me that in the past, the Area Agency on Aging here in Ascension did do other work than just the elderly. They had more of a general transportation function, but they found that it was so burdensome to do that it was just, they went back to just serving the elderly. So I would say first, nobody's looking at, all of a sudden an express bus coming down this way. And part of that issue with that is that as they're widening the interstate, those are not HOV lanes. That was one of the questions we first asked when we found that the state was appropriating the money and putting the money on the I-10 widening as well. Is this going to be an HOV lane? And it was like, nope, that wasn't cleared environmentally for HOV, and so it's not going to be. So we can start doing things in the future that make it more easier for people to carpool. And as part of that, what the state is committed to is they started last year. We're starting the second year of a 3-year project on travel demand management, which is basically encouraging carpoolers and van poolers. And when we did a survey, and it was not, it was state offices, it was Department of Natural Revenue, DEQ, and DOTD, and there are a lot of state workers that come from Ascension to Baton Rouge, to the CBD. And basically the southern part of East Baton Rouge and the northern part of Ascension where the survey worker, where the state workers were surveyed, said that they would be most willing to carpool. Now, one of the issues you have with carpooling a lot of times, and maybe you saw it in the paper, is guaranteed ride homes. Everybody wants that ability to, if you need a ride home, you can quickly and easily get one and not have to wait for the carpool or the van pool. And the other one is you want to guarantee time savings. And so when I mentioned like the HOV lanes, that's what gets people encouraged to do those time savings. When very similar case when they built the Crescent City Connection down in New Orleans, they actually had an HOV 7 lane. It was in effect a bus lane. And the people got up in arms about it and made it an HOV 3, but they actually cleared that extra lane on the Crescent City Connection for buses. And if you go down to New Orleans now, and like maybe if you look on Rampart and other places, they got bus lanes now. They kind of do dual bus, bike lanes. But we're so far beyond that right now. I would think that the state's efforts to do TDM, to basically encourage carpooling and encourage van pooling, is certainly the way to go. And I'll give you an example. In 1980, we had twice as many carpoolers than we do now. Well, in 1980, we had the same number of lanes on I-10, right there at the foot of the bridge. So we've incurred more congestion just because we're carpooling less than we did 35 years ago. So we probably need to get back to that, and that's one of the things we're modeling right now is how bad the congestion is going to be when they do the work from the split down to the foot of the bridge, and that's ongoing. At the end of this month, DOTD will be having public meetings. So even though I don't think they're having one down here in Ascension, but y'all probably want to go to one of the two in Baton Rouge or the one over on the west side, where they're going to talk about the impacts, talk about the time of construction. And as we get through, looking at those models and looking at what the future is going to be, because that's not going to be a one-year project. That's going to be a multi-year project. And that's going to maybe start changing people's perceptions on, what's the applicability of carpooling and van pooling to and from where you got to go every day. And that's the people that are the low-hanging fruit, or your commuters that are going to the same place. But yes, I completely share your frustration with the number of plant workers that just drive their own pickup truck to and from the plant, even though they could all stop at Cabela's and load up and go in a faster, and actually it'd be better for everybody, So with that, do I have any other questions? I mean, let's open it up
for questions.
Yeah, go with it.
To start at the end, Councilman Kluhat. I'm sorry, well, Catalina, so you had nothing.
I'll
No, you
wait
good?
my time with Mr. Kluart right now.
He didn't have any questions yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Good.
Well, Jamie, I remember when you first started, so, we've been through a lot of meetings together and things over the years. In my early career, I've been a plant worker for 44 years now. In my early career, we carpooled a lot. I traveled from outside of Gonzales, from Santa Monica, a bunch of us, and we drove to Triad Chemical in Donaldsonville, Louisiana, which is now part of CF Industries. And we always tried to carpool. I think as somehow the job demands and different things kind of led people away from carpooling. But we do have a significant larger number of people going. You mentioned Cabela's, probably about 70% at the plant I'm at, which is on close to the corner of Todd and I, both close to the corner of 73 and 30, where our two plants are partners there. And I'm gonna say a little bit over 70%, maybe closer to 80% of the employees that I got travel a long way. So when they get to Cabela's, that would just be
Right.
3 more miles,
Exactly.
okay? All right, so,
But what if it's half their time?
well, that's what I'm
the
saying. So there, it would be by the time they pulled off of the interstate or off of 30 and went into Cabela's and parked and waited to get on a bus or whatever, they would already be at the plant. So it's somehow it's got to be feasible to the person doing it.
Well, and that's the other thing is that now,
and
now that plants have gone more to contract workers, they all want to offer them free parking. Well, we had the same issue when we were dealing with the state workers downtown. We went and asked the Division of Administration, well, would y'all consider charging your employees for your parking? And they said, no, we haven't given them a raise in 12 years. We can't now start charging them for their parking.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily so with the plant
plants.
workers, but the fact is that I've sat in a lot of management meetings and even on expansions, new plants, brownfield work, greenfield work, and the thought of charging somebody for parking never even came across the table in any conversation. Now, what we have tried to do is, when we have large expansions and we got like an extra 100 people in that we would not normally have, we have on average of 35 to 45 people in the plant on an average day. And but we do look at outside parking and busing into the plant. But that outside parking is usually somewhere close. On rare occasions, it's been as far out as Lamar Dixon, you know, at a meeting point, or even the Cabela's type areas. But
Well,
It-
and
it
and I
just-
think, I think when we
just-
see a plant also, we see a plant, we think of one pool of workers, but we had an
No.
interview on the, in a big plant on the other side of the river, and the plant manager said, look, I've got 9 different operating units within this 1,200 person plant, and they all start and stop at different times. So it's not a pool of 1,200, it's 9 pools of about 110.
Yeah.
And so that changes the way you would look at. The
Yeah.
other thing is on the west side, he said 70% of my workers live over here. It's the 30% in the management that lives over in the Country Club of Louisiana and out this way that really are the ones that complain the most.
yeah, what I'm saying is that, you know, traffic is always, you know, been something talked about as in industry. And,
Right. Well, now,
But there's
and
no
simple answer, but I
There's
mean,
no simple
Chairman
answer.
Lawler, through the MPO process, through our long-range planning process, we did a call for projects, and one of the regional projects we're doing is we're starting the environmental work on LA 30 to do the widening from Airline Highway all the way
up.
to Brightside. Okay,
That's right.
now we're still waiting after 5 months for a project number from the state, but you know, in short order, we're putting that together, and let me tell you why that happened, because we have this bridge controversy. Where's the bridge going? Where is it going? And so we were doing modeling about 4 years ago on where would the best locations for the bridge be. And I had to call up DOTD and say, you know, we don't have in our 25-year plan the widening of LA 30, but right now, if you don't widen LA 30, it doesn't matter where you put the bridge. Nobody can get to it. And so they said, okay, in your long-range plan, go ahead and look at LA 30 being widened. Okay, that's what started this whole conversation. And so when we did the call for projects, we've actually got an agreement between Ascension, Iberville, and East Baton Rouge to fund the local portion of that, but use your federal funds for 80% of that environmental work. And that's going to be going on over the next couple of years. Actually, I was meeting with that guy just last week to kind of talk about what's going to be in that scope of work, you know, and how we want to approach it to go forward. Because the things I've asked, your parish president, is I said, okay, you know, a couple of major things we have to think about on LA 30 is if this bridge that we're building in the future is a toll bridge, do we want to pay a toll on a toll road to get to that toll bridge? Is that going to be feasible? Because the project cost about $250 million. It's 20 miles. Okay, it's long. And the other thing is are people going to pay a toll or want to go to a toll bridge if there's stoplights on the road? So do we need at least partial control of access so that when you hit the corner at 73 or you hit 74, that you don't have to stop? Okay, basically from the time you get off at I-10 all the way to Brightside. And so I'm very encouraged that Mayor Broome in her tax proposal has put forward, you know, a big chunk, almost 10% of her money goes to LA 30. And the modeling shows that actually we need more than one lane. Whenever that bridge lands, whether it be on Bayou Paul Road or out, out Bayou Gula or wherever, you really need 8 lanes from that point going back to LSU. I mean, you need more than 6 lanes at least.
6.
Yeah, 4 isn't going to do it. And so there's work progressing on these things. I wish as we would do these projects like the I-10 widening, we would have considered doing either HOV lanes or during congested periods, let people run on the shoulders as a hot lane. Basically, you know, if you got 3 or 4 people, it's free, but you can pay a toll. And DOTD is actually doing a study on I-12 right now on that very issue, on 12 out, you know, from the split all the way out. So there is some opportunity going forward, but I just don't think in the near future you're going to see buses suddenly loading up at Tanger and taking people into work. I think what you do is when you build transit, you build it up slowly. And so as the need's there, people start naturally carpooling and vanpooling, but just industry the way it is, it's just not, it hadn't gelled yet. And one of the questions I asked was, I said, well, when we had the Gabria came in and the Crisis Coalition was formed, I was like, well, what do y'all do in other places? You know, BSF is a German company. What do y'all do in Germany? And they said, oh, well, everybody at our plant in, I think it was Ludwigshafen in Germany.
Ride bikes.
No, they all take the train. Well, we have something called 9/11 that happened, and nobody wants to put commuters through the train tracks which run through all their big plants. That's just, from a safety standpoint, I don't think we're ever going to get there.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Councilman Lambert?
Talking about the bridge while y'all on that subject. I know they actually came to this committee. I don't know if y'all were on board at the time, but yeah, we gave money, contributed to money for the study of it. And if they build a bridge, Highway 30 was guaranteed that it would have to be 4-laned or whatever,
Yeah.
all the way to Airline, all the way to LSU. That was pretty much.
Well, that's why that number now, if you look in the statewide long-range plan, has gone up considerably.
Correct.
I think the estimates now are range between 1.1 and 1.4
It would be
billion.
doable. It wouldn't be doable to build a bridge if you didn't have.
Well, up until 3 years ago, they weren't even discussing that,
Yeah.
Chairman. That was not part of the plan, and we hadn't even looked at it.
Right.
Another thing I want to bring out is that carpooling is a big help when it comes to air quality. You know, those pickup trucks that are all sitting there idling on LA 30, that are idling on LA 22, trying to get back on the interstate, that is a big contributor to our air quality problems. And now we do have a lot of monitors everywhere, so that makes us, you know, susceptible to being caught. But air quality is another thing that would be helped from this proposal. And I don't want to talk out of turn since I haven't gone in front of the Metro Council in East Baton Rouge. I do that Wednesday night. But we've been doing the modeling, and the relief on the traffic network, just from your parish line, north into Baton Rouge, is incredible. If that tax passes, it will be a big benefit to the residents of Ascension, not just East Baton Rouge. Big time.
Councilwoman Cazzo?
It's just a comment, Jamie, thank you so much. I've been thrilled that you were here, because I was a part of that discussion way back when you were hired 5 years ago, and enjoyed that very much. You know, everything old becomes new again, and my grandmother rode the train to New Orleans, and my hope is that one day we'll have the opportunity to do that again. I'd like an update on that for the as far as the Rail Commission is concerned. And my father, just for these gentlemen's knowledge, he and 5 of his very best friends, lifelong friends, rode back and forth to Copalama together every day. They watched us grow up. They became integral parts of our families, and those gentlemen did, and us as children, we knew them well, them and their children. So I think this is something that, as the discussion happens, and if people want to, you know, often say, I want it the way it used to be. Well, let me tell you how it used to be. People carpooled, and people rode the train to New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think it can be done again. For those people who want what it was old to be new again, that's the way to do it.
You know, it's funny because I grew up in Sherwood Forest, and there was a guy down the street that worked at Exxon, and every morning we'd be out waiting for the bus, and he'd be out there waiting for his carpool. So it was, you know, it's very doable. Now, as far as the train, I haven't been involved in all the conversations, you know, in depth. But there are some issues with the trackage down in New Orleans, and so the state and the new multimodal commissioner has been working with the delegation down in New Orleans to see if they and KCS can resolve some issues with the trains. As you know, this is what I like to tell people. 90% of the problem with getting a train between Baton Rouge and New Orleans isn't in Baton Rouge. It's between the airport in New Orleans to the CBD. Only 10% of the problems are our way. Now, one of the things we need to be looking at realistically, and this came up, you know, when Bobby Jindal returned the money in 2009.
Bless him.
Yeah, we sat down I was at Federal Highway Administration at the time here in Baton Rouge. And we sat down and we looked at the rail line. And it's 80 miles long, and it's got 80 at-grade rail crossings. And 40 of those are owned by the state. And the way I look at it is always ask the question, are you serious about a project? And I think if we are, as a state or a community, is serious about it, we're going to look at how to close and grade separate those rail crossings. Because one of the great things that the freight industry is worried about is recreating the city of New Orleans, Chicago line. Because those what happens is people drive up to a train track and they look left and right, a freight train moves at a different speed than a passenger train. And so those people that are used to that freight train speed are the ones that get hit by the passenger train because it's moving at a different speed. And that's why I think, you know, prioritizing the gating and the closing and the chain and grade separating of those routes between here and New Orleans will go a long way towards making it ready. But it also shows we're serious, you know? And I had a conversation a few years ago, I guess it's been about 3 or 4 with the railroads. I said, you know, what if we had just taken $5 million a year and built sidings? Because you can do about a mile of siding with $5 million. The train, you know, the KCS would have loved us if we had done that, because it would have made their train reliability just go through the roof between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And we do have, at this time, one of the least used train tracks. There's not a huge, because of the size of the KCS yard in downtown Baton Rouge, it's just, they're not running trains at the speed or at the regular service that they really could
CN's
if they
much
had.
bigger.
Pardon me?
See
I
you.
said CN's bigger.
Yeah. Oh, yes, big time. And if you go over and look in Livonia, that's like a national example of what a train, multimodal train station looks like. It's like it's got the security of a port. It's so important to the Union Pacific coming up and down, because that's basically where they stack everything before they run the river to service all the plants. And it's amazing what's stacking up there.
Councilman Cagliari.
Yeah, Jamie, thank you for coming. Dealt with you when you first started as well. I agree with Terry. My dad worked at Ormet for years, and there were 5 gentlemen from Gonzales that carpooled. And Dad would go wait out by the driveway, and his drive would come when it wasn't his week to drive, and they drove every 5th week. 5 guys took 1 car to work every day. I think the younger generation needs to be educated about carpooling, because, you know, let's face it, guys in Louisiana, they like their trucks, and they like to drive their trucks to work by themselves. So I think some education is in order. And the other thing you touched on was toll roads, you know, toll bridge. I think many states, Florida for sure, and many other states, toll roads, and Texas for sure,
Big time.
they privatized roads, and they just said, hey, go out and do it, and they ended up collecting some money on the side. It doesn't all go to the private company. The local counties or the local municipalities do share and get some revenue from it. But it speeds up traffic. When I go to Houston, I jump on the Beltway in a heartbeat. I don't care what it costs me to get to the west side of town, because I don't want to go through downtown in peak hour, peak traffic hour. So it's going to be an education process. It's going to be a process to where we show them that it's better if you do it that way.
Well, I think now that, one thing is that young people are getting driver's licenses at a lower rate than others. And I had this conversation with my dentist recently. He said, man, I got 2 kids at LSU, and I cringe when I get my monthly Uber bill.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, and then he said, well, but I know they're not going to get a DUI, you know? And so there's that trade-off, you know? So I think kids are starting to learn that, you know, you can let somebody else do your driving.
But I think we have a chance to the millennials are going to be more acceptable.
Yes.
Because they like, you know, immediate
Gratification. Yes. Well, and I think, look, and I don't want to, you know, scare people about how bad the construction will be in Baton Rouge, but it's going to take at least 5 years. I mean, DOTD's already said, I've heard between 5 and 9 being the range. But they have admitted that it will be at least 5 years. And if I grew up in Sherwood Forest, I remember the orange barrels and that, you know, problem that it accrued during that time. And we're just going to have, I think the pain, it's just like it's going to be I always tell people that the Green Light program would have never passed, William, if Katrina hadn't happened 3 months before. Because remember? Yeah, see, he thinks so. I don't think so. But, and remember, right before the vote, it happened. And I told the mayor, I said, you know, the current mayor, I said, boy, you ought to put your vote down, you know, put your ballot, the vote right after we do the I-10 widening starts. Because everybody's going to look at it and go, I'll pay whatever I need to take care of that problem. Yeah.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councilwoman Kazza.
I guess you're telling us we're going to be wearing orange barrels at Halloween again?
Yes.
Remember when that was
Yep.
the #1 costume every year in Baton Rouge at Halloween, was people went to Halloween parties as orange barrels? So we're going to be there again.
Yes, we
Wonderful. Everything old.
Yep, everything else is new again. You're very correct.
I don't have anything at this time.
I have a question. You mentioned hot lanes on shoulders, HOV. Educate me a little bit on what that is.
Well, think about I-12, where they did all that widening, and you got that nice 12, 14-foot wide shoulder on the inside, and it goes all the way out to Walker now. Well, what you do is you take off the reflective buttons and you put some gantries over there, and when rush hour hits, you put basically the green light, a cop runs it, make sure that it's not being, there's no vehicles or debris in the roadway in the new lane, and then during rush hour, you allow people to, if they have either 3 or more people in their car, to ride it for free, but also, if there's just one person, they have to pay a toll. And they do this very regularly up in Washington, D.C., actually. They had a revolt because it's congestion priced. The more you want to use it, the higher the price goes. And in one day this spring, they were charging $40 to jump in that lane, and people were paying it. And so I wasn't even looking at making money. I was discussing with y'all, with the parish presidents, hey, why don't we just, even if it costs us money, but it saves people that time in the morning commute. The problem is that I-12 ends at the split, and so you still got to crawl through that last 3 miles. And then, like I said, they didn't really think about it as they were doing the widening out this way. So we haven't got them to agree that would. And there's some operational issues right around range, and that's probably going to inhibit the ones on I-12.
Well, I guess that was my next question. Is that even possible for what they're doing out here in Ascension?
That's what I'm asking, is that they go ahead and make the shoulders full depth so that you at least have the option going forward. I think one of the big issues that they're going to have if you try to do that out here is the amount of ramp distance you have getting off the interstate, and would you start backing those up? Because that's always kind of the red flag for the Federal Highway Administration is once you've overloaded an interchange and the traffic backs up on the interstate, that's where the danger comes in. Mm-hmm. And so trying to fix that problem at range seems to be an issue, and it would probably be one going forward, but I wish they had put that in the environmental when they cleared the environmental for the widening, just gone ahead and said that's the way it's going to be. Because it really would have, think about it, if you get off it, you're getting on the interstate right there at 73, and you could have had a free lane basically all the way to the split. That's a big incentive. That would have been a big incentive. And, yeah, people would pay for that, wouldn't they? Yeah, even the state workers that I talk to, that live out in Watson and Walker are like, oh, I would pay. Because your workers know if they leave at 7:05, they're in a bad way, but if they leave at 6:55 or whatever that time is, they're okay. And people instinctively know that. And I think that's another thing about carpooling is in the past it was always 5 days a week. Well, it don't have to be 5 days a week. If you do it 4 days or 3 days, that's still good. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. And that's why I think van pooling is one of those options. And we don't have a great van pool experience here, but right down the river over in New Orleans, they have an incredible van pooling, and it's all private, and it's mostly from Slidell and Mandeville, Covington, where they ride. They have serious private van pools, that kind of like what you want to see.
Okay. Unless we don't have any more questions, thank you very much. Oh, President Matassa.
I was at a meeting with Jamie this morning, and the mayor of Baker talked about park and ride, but of course he's in the CAT system, and he said he estimates about 300 cars a day off the roads with that park and ride. Now they're in the CAT system, so they use the CAT's buses. But about a year ago, I was talking to some plant managers, and one of our biggest employers said that they surveyed and they checked all kind of ways to try to get them to do things, and the employees said we want to drive our vehicle to work. So it's the mindset, and it's the big companies that got to help us change. Now, and I don't know how much good when Occidental did their expansion, they parked 600 cars a day at Lamar Dixon, and it went real smooth. But I guess because of the times, maybe it worked really well where they could just hit the highway and go home after. But they said it worked really well. And that was 600 cars a day doing that construction.
Well, and I'll say this out here in a outer parish, the beauty of carpooling and van pooling is people aren't trip chaining their way back to your community. So when those people get in a carpool, and if they need to go to the cleaners, or they need to go to the grocery store, or they need to go to the pharmacy, they do it all in your neighborhood. They don't go do it in Baton Rouge as they're working their way home. So that's a big benefit for y'all, and you would see your tax revenue increase over time, just because you can't stop a carpool to go get your kids' medicine. You're not going to jam up 4 other people's day. So you do it all here. So actually, that's a you know, I can't, it's very quiet, but you have to say that for truth, because you will see an increase in your tax revenue as more people do move to that mode of travel.
Well, I think this is something that I'm glad we started the conversation on it, something we should continue to discuss. It doesn't sound like we're ready for it yet, but I would like to see, we've heard it from several people here tonight, carpooling. I know a lot of the people that complain about traffic drive one person to a vehicle. You know, take the lead, pick up somebody. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Setz.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item number 7, ordinance permitting road infrastructure development district. This is something that, Jerome, I'm going to ask you to come on up for this. O'Neill was kind enough to draft an ordinance on this, but Jerome's going to help us through it, discuss this, and kind of explain what it is.
Is this the district?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, item number
7.
7, got you. All right. What's proposed is a type of an assessment district that would be placed on new subdivisions. And there would be basically an assessment or a tax that's applied to the properties and paid for over the years. And the idea is to accumulate enough money in a pot that we could go in and repair the roads at, let's say, a 15 or 20-year time frame. You know, so that's the idea behind this. So it would be placed on the final plat. We'd have to have the district approved prior to the signature and the recordation of the final plat, and that's and the developer who's in the sole ownership of the property at that time would vote this in. Right. So that's the idea behind it.
Now, I think one of the issues that this was brought up is because we have an issue right now. We're taking so many roads in, we don't have the ability to fund the maintenance of them.
That's correct.
So this would be a self-funding mechanism.
Right. That's
Councilman
exactly.
Pulott.
Yeah, Jerome, real quick, we talked about this before, and that seemed like something that we always said, even under the past administration, there's possible things we can do because we can develop a district.
Right.
What is the effect of, say, I'm just pick a subdivision, just a large subdivision's developing and making that their own road district, that the homeowner that buys in there, what does that have to do with their responsibility toward road impact?
Well, they would be paying the tax. The new home buyer would be paying the tax, right? So don't quote me on this because I don't have the ordinance. I wasn't prepared for this tonight. But
and I'm good.
If I remember correctly, it was about $75 per year, something along those lines. And all of the homeowners would pay that on an annual basis. And then that money would eventually, be accumulated over time.
But that would stay in that pot for that subdivision.
Correct.
So that they would be relieved of the impact fee or not?
No, this is separate from the traffic impact fee.
That's what I want to make
Yes,
sure that
yes.
everybody understood.
Yeah. Yeah, this is for road repair.
That's it.
Yes, exactly.
Future.
Mr. Day? Oh,
What is it? Assessment. It's a fee. Well, I'm being corrected. It's not a tax, it's a fee.
yeah, it's
It's a fee, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Enlow, I have a question for you. Is this something that, and I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, by doing this, can we properly, or do we have the ability to figure out what the 20-year maintenance cost on a set of roads would be, and then set the rate accordingly?
Yes, absolutely. We've got costs going back from multiple overlay contracts. We've got, it's going to be, in ranges, but absolutely. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's curb and gutter or open ditch, overlay, total reconstruction, a mix and match of the two. So we've got plenty of costs going back, 15 years to easily put that to these assets and figure out what type of pricing.
I'm going to ask a stupid softball question. As we currently sit, do we have enough money in our transportation budget to maintain the roads that we're currently taking in?
One more time?
As we currently are funded right now, do we have enough money to maintain the roads that we're taking in on new subdivisions? To maintain them?
No, No. Or any, we don't have enough money in the budget to properly maintain the roads that have been in our system for years, 20 years,
Way behind.
way behind. We can do some more, we can bring some more figures to you about kind of what our department takes in, and, roughly it's $6 to $8 million, 2/3 of 1/2 cent. So I think fire district gets a third of that, so it's $3 to $4 million a year, and we get 6 to 8. That 1/2 cent generates around $8 to $12 million a year. So that's what we have in the road construction fund to do. Road improvements, capacity improvements, which you can all see the only really capacity improvement we have going on in the last 20 years is Highway 42. And everybody knows how long that took, so, yeah, we're not properly funded at all.
And that's not the parish paying for that, that's the state paying for that.
That's a
Highway
state
42.
paying for that, right. So,
Yeah. Councilman Cluett.
Yeah, whomever wants to answer, if we go to Exhibit A, is plats and data for final approval. Under number 4, the scenario that if the developer chooses not to be in the program.
Yeah, I can address that. If the developer chooses not to participate in the program, then we would not accept the roads. They would become private roads, private streets in the subdivision. And the maintenance will be basically the responsibility for the HOA.
All right. Well, I'm just saying in our past, and I'm sure that were some subdivisions that's old enough to where they originally weren't parish roads and then became parish roads through ordinance, through the parish council. But I know I have a road, that Todd had for years, Bayou Terrace, which just got through redoing a big, long road. When that road was originally built, it was a private road. And, I mean, it became very apparent to all the homeowners down there that they couldn't afford directly to just put a new road there, when it got bad, things like that. So there was a lot of work went into trying to put a little tax on them to cover that road maintenance and try to get out of that hole that they were in at the time. So do you anticipate developer coming forward, should we pass this? And do you anticipate a developer saying, I'm opt out, I'm not?
I don't necessarily accept, no, I wouldn't think
I
so.
don't either, because at some point, the developer passes that on to the homeowner.
They will, yes.
And so I'm just trying to look at all the angles on it, so.
To say that this is not going to be retroactive, obviously. This is going to be
No.
only for subdivisions moving forward.
Right.
And we're protected under state statute, the way it's written.
That's my understanding, yes, from O'Neill. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe this ability's been within our hands for a long time to do this type of thing.
It has
Like I
been,
said, past President Martin has brought it up several times, that, hey, you got that option. If you don't want to take in these 3 miles on this subdivision and then 5 miles on that other subdivision. And we have some council members that have set for a while and have voted in a lot of roads, and now they all of a sudden, we're not taking in any more roads, but I don't know where we stand. It's just, from what I understand, that when we accept the plat, and it comes in front of us, and it becomes law as we accept the plat, and it goes forward to building, that we own the roads from that point.
Yeah.
We go in and we go through formalities to vote in Road A, Road B, Road C, and wait for,
Now, developers can choose to have private roads, and we do have certain developers that have private roads, and they're the responsibility of the HOA.
yeah.
Certain roads in the past that haven't met our criteria, we haven't accepted them, and it's clearly stated on the plat that those roads are private, and they're the responsibility of the HOA.
Yeah, that would be across Highway 22 at River Highlands.
Right. And we have a couple of them,
Where
too, that
that
have come
man,
through.
the developer made a decision 25, 30 years ago that, this will be private forever.
Right.
And, and we've had to work with those homeowners. So
Yeah.
private's good if you got a big old HOA, and homeowners association and you paying into it.
Right.
I can tell you, there's countless areas in my district, and I don't have a lot of subdivisions. There's countless areas that don't have a homeowners association developed or up and working.
Right.
All right, so that's a crippling thing that gets passed on to the homeowners, and I'm not saying unknowing, but it just never gets done.
Okay.
And, you know, those folks feel like anybody else, they didn't look at all the fine print before they bought the house, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of assumptions, and there's a lot of things that are not being passed to them either by the realtor or by the developer as they're buying, so it's a big choice if a developer's gonna say, I'm gonna opt out.
Right.
I anticipate should this go forward, that 99% of them are gonna opt in,
I would imagine that as well.
because at the end of the day, they pass that dollar down to somebody else. So, like I said, well, we talked about it before, I wanna make sure that everything's clear on this. But we do have that ability. We can make road districts wherever we want. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Cazzo.
Now, Jerome, is it possible, I mean, I understand this would not be retroactive, certainly, but is it possible for some of our old subdivisions to perhaps opt in? Could there be a way, is there any precedent for that anywhere, where an older subdivision says, look, we're gonna form an HOA, we're gonna become a transportation district, and we're gonna pay a tax to get our roads repaired, and what would be
My understanding is that
mechanism to do that?
my understanding is there is a way for that. It's going to require a vote of the property owners. And I'm not quite sure what the threshold is on that vote, whether it's 2/3 or 3/4 or, you know, whatever the case is. We could look at that and get back to you on that. But there is a mechanism, it's my understanding is that they can create their own road improvement district.
Interesting. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Councilman Lambert.
Yeah, I agree a lot what Randy said, but as one thing I've been getting a lot of complaints on some of the subdivisions with the homeowner association is the retention ponds. A lot of the homeowners probably don't know, but they should know if they looked at that plat, that the retention pond is owned by them.
That's right.
And all the parish maintains is just the outfall ditch.
Correct.
That comes out of that pond. I've had a couple constituents just recently call me, and the ponds are not kept up, and they're wanting the parish to fund it. But legally, I talked to O'Neill and cleared me up, which I knew the answer, but I wanted to make sure legal, you know, made that statement to me that, no, we can't touch it. It's private property.
It is.
The owners of the subdivision. So, and once they find out about that, they kind of, you know, get pretty upset about it. So that would have to be up front and definitely brought to them before they purchase a home in these subdivisions.
Yes.
So it's gonna be something that is,
I got
something needed,
a quick question.
you know, we can't keep taking in the roads like we're doing.
Exactly.
There's just no way, with the funding that we have, we tried to get more funding and that got, denied with the tax through the people, the citizens of the parish, so we have to live within what we have, and that's all we can do, you know, and we have to move forward to control it.
Yeah, just to be, we're servants of people, so just a quick note, within our flats and with our inspections and everything, if a developer opts out, do we still have some kind of standards he needs to build that road?
Absolutely.
Just like standards they need to build that house, standards they need to put that sewer in,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
some kind of approval of the road
Right.
at some point, even if he opts out.
Right, even if he opts out, any project right now, any subdivision that opts to have private roads, those private roads still have to be built to our standards. We inspect them, we make sure that they are built to our standards. We just don't accept the roads when the final plat's approved.
I'm just trying to protect people, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Cazzo.
Yeah, and in furtherance of Randy's concern, we would have clearly marked plats, we would have a way to notify people who were buying in that subdivision that this was indeed the case, because that's something that's gonna be important going forward.
Well, it is noted on the plat. Now, how far the real estate agent goes with informing a home buyer about that, I'm not sure. And that's kind of a private matter between them.
So how do we require that? because we are going to have, I mean, look, I've got people that were promised they were going to get to look at cows until their children were
Yeah.
grown.
Yeah.
I understand
Right.
that a realtor, unfortunately on occasion, is not representing his or herself accurately. And so we've got to, and likewise that happens in any profession. But as the governing authority, we have a responsibility to make sure that people know that their road is not going to be able to be fixed.
I'll work with O'Neill, I'll talk to him tomorrow, but noticing requirements and things of this sort, whether we can beef up the code to do that, I'm not sure, I can't answer that question right now.
Thank you
We'll
very
look
much.
into it.
Councilman Cagliari.
If you form these, what are you calling it? Infrastructure Development Districts? I like what Mr. Daniel said. Let's call it a fee.
It is a fee.
It's not a tax, it's a fee.
I know Mr. Setz wants to add something on this, I believe.
Yes.
So, pretty open meeting.
Got a couple of points there, and, you know, every city, every parish, every municipality, all over the country, probably all over the world, has issues with, you know, how do they fund the necessary infrastructure. And I don't know what y'all's history is with the road transfer program from DOTD, but I've been in enough meetings and talked to them enough about it to tell you a little bit on why that can be a good thing in the near term, because you're not going to have that deal forever. So basically, DOTD takes $25 million of your federal funds, which is almost a penny in your, excuse me, it's almost a penny of your taxes, and they set it aside for road transfers. Now, the reason they're doing this is because DOT has a hierarchy of roads, interstates, major arterials, minor arterials. But over time, because we're in the Huey Long era, 100 years of locals transferring their roads to the state government, the state of Louisiana owns about almost 40% of their system is really local roads, roads that the cities, the towns, and the parishes should really own. And so they are making this money available to go ahead, and let me be clear, they're not paying you to take the road, okay? What they're doing is they are giving you the road, and then they are calculating a 40-year maintenance credit that they give you so that for the next 40 years, you won't be encumbered by that road. But when you look at a state, across the entire state, there's thousands of miles, 7,000 miles, that they're going to get rid of. They don't have enough money to transfer 7,000 miles. So someday, when they're not doing these roads, over time, they're just going to give them back to you. And I think that y'all would be wise to look into the road transfer program and use it to the extent possible while there's money. Because DOT, the district, you can get a map from them. They have a map that comes from the traffic section, and it has the vision of what they're going to give up. And it's very easy to look at. It's local roads and very small collectors. It's not, DOT is never going to give you the interstate. They're never going to give you LA 30. They're not going to give you 73. They're not going to give you 74. But these smaller roads that they have admitted they don't have the maintenance funds for, and that they're really not maintaining right now, are eventually going to become such poor shape that they're not going to want the liability, and they're just going to go ahead and give them back. And so, got to remember though, it's $25 million, and it's first come, first serve. So think about this. East Baton Rouge was, William, how much did y'all do the road transfer for? 85 million? 97 million? That's 4 years of the road transfer that they haven't accrued the money. What they're doing is they're taking the best roads that are already up in fair condition or better, and they're transferring those over. But DOTD is so short of money that they've been asking the MPO, the locals, the city of East Baton Rouge, to work on those roads instead of them. And it's like, no, we're getting the road for your money. So, I mean, that crunch time is coming. And I would suggest if y'all have critical roads, those smaller ones that you know they're important to you, you can tell by the lack of maintenance they're not important to DOTD. Those should be something that y'all are looking at and prioritizing, because that is a source of revenue that's available today that in a few years it's not going to be. So I just wanted to kind of let y'all talk about that. And I had something else I was talking about real quick there. And I was just discussing with you. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, so
One question on that.
Yes, sir.
You're saying the state's just gonna give them back to the parish. What if the parish doesn't accept them? They don't have to accept them, they're still state highways, the state's still liable, so if
No,
somebody
that's,
gets.
no, that's not what's gonna happen. The state law says that the state legislature, and there's a state law that says there are this many miles of state highway. The state legislature passes a law and says, we cut that road number by 7,000, the roads are going back to y'all.
They just slam us.
They will send it to you. They have that authority. Now,
But the next thing is, once you get your money and you get your credits, when it's time to redo these roads in the parish,
Mm-hmm.
you've seen how much funding we have. How are we gonna fund repairing all these major through roads that we don't fool with now?
well, the state is focusing their money first on interstates, okay, and that's
Right.
why and this has been a big thing at the NPO meetings, is that the state came out with a white paper earlier this year that said, as we forecast our future revenues for our long-range plan, we have to reduce that by 20%, okay? When we did the calculation for this 5-parish area, for the next 25 years, we got to reduce what we thought was a $2.2 billion budget down to less than about 1.9. So we lost almost $300 million right out the door just by a letter being signed or being accepted by federal highways. So the money's not, I mean, the DOT will tell you if they were standing here, the cavalry's not coming. Okay, I say, I say you're on your own. That's honestly what it is. But look at what East Baton Rouge is doing. They're looking at putting in a 0.5 cent. They've been aggressively transferring the roads, and that's what's allowing Baton Rouge to continue the Greenlight program forward. You know, the Greenlight program, when did the last bond get sold for the Greenlight program? Yeah, you see, so they knew that they were dropping off, and to keep that momentum going, they instituted this, and it was very wise, because eventually they're gonna lose them anyway. I mean, you're gonna own it one way or the other. You will
And
be owning it.
if they just give them to us, they don't bring them up to standard, we don't
Yeah,
get 40 years
that's
maintenance.
the worry, because they only budget in 25 million. They're not gonna spend the entire state budget on that in 1 year. And actually, I had gone to Federal Highways and said, how can they make you take a road? And they're like, from the federal perspective, they don't even recognize parishes and cities. The federal constitution says there's a federal government and there's a state government. So how your tax dollars get funged around inside your state, hands off from the federal government. They can do it, and they cannot give you money if they don't want to. They're being nice now, and they are, and I would suggest that you take them up on the offer.
And if you don't believe, Jamie, which you should, think about the hospitals. They closed all of the hospitals, and they put all of the hospital costs on local government. They just pushed it right down the road to the locals to pick up. So while they saved money statewide, somebody had to pick up those extra hospital costs, which were local governments. They can do the same with the roads. They have abandonment procedures for the roads as well.
That was my next question. Do they have procedures already in place to abandon these roads? I mean, like they're planning on it?
No, I don't think so. But one of the reasons that a few years ago under the Jindal administration, they started taking the vehicle registration and the truck registration fees and putting them in what they call the non-federal aid routes, was that there were a lot of rural routes through Louisiana that the post office was refusing to deliver mail on. That's actually when it starts triggering. When the post office says we won't deliver mail because that's not a usable road, that kicked the legislature in. But they took money that they already had and stuck it over there. What are they going to do in the future? They're going to stick it on you.
It'll be gravel roads then.
Well, that's what they're returning to. What did Councilwoman Casso say?
I was in
Everything old
Texas.
is new
I
again.
was
Yeah,
in
we're going back to gravel.
I was in Texas 2 weeks ago, and their major roads are asphalt, but if you look at all their roads going to Toledo Bend on the west side, all dirt roads.
Well, and what we have to also deal with is that a lot of people expect overlays. They think milling and 2-inch overlays are great, but chip seals and slurry coats and crack sealing, that all has to be part of your preventive maintenance so that your roads don't get to the condition. And so when Mr. Inslow was up here talking about the need for maintenance, as we look at y'all's pavement preservation plans, we program, we're talking to y'all about programming a whole lot of slurry coats, chip seals, and crack sealing. But I'll give you an example. When LaBerge was built, they wanted an overlay on River Road, and it just needed a chip seal. Well, it blew the entire budget, the maintenance budget for District 61 to do that overlay instead of the more proper lower limit. The thing is, though, if you go out and use Texas as an example, when they do interstate maintenance, they'll just do a slurry coat out there. They've done them so long, they got 8 inches thick now. It's like a pavement. But you do them regularly and you do them very cheaply. It's 10% of the cost of an overlay. And so when you do that, you extend your life of your pavement, but also what I keep hearing is y'all don't have money. Do the cheapest thing that works. But also you need a little money, and if the state's offering you money, go ahead and take it.
I wanted to mention our pavement management group is, they're doing crack sealing, chip sealing, thin overlays. So, we're starting an asset management program. We're getting help from LTRC with that. But, the information I got from them, we're handling, our roads the right way right now. We're
Doing a good job with it.
yeah, we're doing a lot of preventative maintenance on them so that they'll last 10 to 12 years longer than normal.
Correct.
So I did want to say, and our pavement management group is doing a great job by doing that. So I wanted to mention that.
I agree. Councilman Cluett.
Yeah, I want to refer back to what Jamie was talking about and, about the road program. I'm in favor of that program. We talked about it as, 5-6 years ago. Under three different directors, secretaries, DOTD. I remember we sitting down with Bradbury back in that day, that era, the different eras. That statement was made on a state level in a convention, that there was the possibility that when that maintenance stopped on these non-high traffic, non-throughway type roads, that they would go back to gravel.
Well, this is,
Well, going back-
this is not something that's new, exactly
No,
right.
that's right.
When the 2003, when the statewide plan had been first done, it said very clearly in there that in 2010, not only would the state stop building roads, but they wouldn't have money to maintain what they had. Now, what happened is Katrina gave them that temporary little bump of money, and that's what allows them to do the I-10 widening, out to Highland, and then the I-12 widening out to Walker, okay? But that money was done by 2011 and 12, so it's been more than 5 years. Well, they told you back in 2003 that day was coming, and that day was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's where the problem is.
And mainly on the state level, it's just, for a lot of funding, it's just a guidance factor for federal highway money coming in.
Right. Well, see, now that they have these
That's it.
performance measures, mandated by Congress, they have to go rehabilitate the urban interstates. We had spent the last 20 years upgrading and fixing and maintaining all the rural interstates. The high dollar ones, the ones that cause a lot of pain and cost a lot of money, are now coming due. And that's Lake Charles, it's Shreveport, it's even Monroe. Okay, so we're not the only ones. It's not just us in New Orleans in this boat. Everybody's going to start getting hit by this. I think only Lafayette and Alexandria will be the urban areas that really don't see the pain of an urban interstate. Yeah.
Councilwoman Cazza.
Yes, Jamie, thank you again. I cannot emphasize enough how irresponsible it would be of us to let the opportunity to take the road and the 40 years of maintenance get away from us. If we let that happen, 10 years from now, whenever they stop, somebody's going to look back and write about what idiots we were to not take the road and the money.
Well, the road's y'all's road, really, because it's in your parish. I mean, And so, what's funny to me is as you work at Federal Highway Administration, about half of them, the employees live in Ascension, and the other half live in Livingston. Mm-hmm. So they drive these roads every day, and they know what the implications are. I mean, the head of Federal Highways lives in Dutchtown.
Yes, I've met him.
Yes, so when y'all talk about the pain of transportation, believe me, the people that are funneling your tax money back here and putting the program together, they feel it every day. Mm-hmm. They really do.
So the state's not always going to work with us and give us $3.9 million of right-of-way and design the road ahead of time?
Right.
No.
Look, it's better off when y'all do y'all's own stuff, get away from Davis-Bacon. That's a 30% savings off your road straight away. And then as long as you're doing your own work, like I said, I'm waiting 5 months for a project number and for them to approve our scope of work for the LA 30 environmental.
Councilman Cluett.
Yeah, just the last thing while we're taking care of Henry and all that is that Gold Place was part of that, so we don't want to forget about Gold Place, okay?
We got you.
But But look, this program, you know, this has been brought to us by two administrations, under two governors, under 3 DOTD secretaries, and 2 parish presidents, okay? And everybody has vetted it, and there's some value to it. You want to choose, but if you get down low on the list, the choosing's not going to be good.
Right, well, I'll give
And
you an
the
example.
value-
There's over in
I'm gonna
Livingston.
say- let me just finish, Jamie. The value of any one of our rural roads goes down exponentially with time. And as traffic cycles change, and that even a road, we see the value of Gold Place Road, okay, in Santamore. There's a day that DOTD or anybody else that would have owned it would have seen almost no value. Because it goes for several miles, but it stops, and it ends.
Prime candidate.
And it's very important to our area, but past the local government, the value is just down. That's one of the reasons why it's ended up on, as an Audubon list to start off with. And I hate to keep using that road, but there's 10 of them that I got in my area,
Well, they're still going to be there, whoever owns them, so why don't you get some money for them now while you still can? That's my point. The road's still, if it's still a valid road, y'all still want it, it's still going to be there.
And just within all our discussion, I know we done got off the point of the
Yes, we
actually
did.
agenda item we're on, but the fact is, I'm gonna go ahead and throw in that, I'm telling you, I've been an advocate for seeing the projects that I've worked with over the years with the federal highway money that's been contributed in and the things that you've got to do for that. But we've got to take an honest look at either a toll bridge, toll road, things. We've had proposals that come in front of us for a toll road to connect Highway 44 straight with Walker South, or with Highway 16. We've had proposals for a toll bridge to go across, whether it's Iberville to Ascension or Ascension to Iberville to Iberville, basically. I don't know that we have a lot of accessibility to probably put a toll road in the parish for crossing through the parish unless we build a brand-new road. And, but we've got to address this and be open to the idea that if we want to get some money up, that private industry is one of the quickest way to do it. That's this last infrastructure bill is gonna try to take care of a little bit more of that for us.
Yeah, as long as the state's having problems, y'all have to fix it yourself.
Yes,
The
indeed.
cavalry's not coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We got off on a little tangent there, but I don't think it was that far off because, we're talking about accepting roads into the system from the states and hoping to get money for it. And here, this issue that we're talking about, the Road Infrastructure Development District, we're talking about accepting roads all the time for major subdivisions that we can't maintain. And this is an opportunity to have a funding source to maintain those roads. One of the things that I think I've heard tonight is that we'd like to look at this a little bit more. And Jerome, maybe if you could help us, maybe by next meeting, get with O'Neill and talk about requirements. Because what we don't want is we don't want people buying and to be surprised by it. But if there's a way to tie in requirements to this, that of notice, a notice requirement to it, I think that would go a long way.
Okay, I'll look into that.
But this is,
Yeah, not just on the plat, a mandatory notice
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
every homeowner that buys a.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay.
but I know we hear this all the time, we can't afford to take these roads in. We're coming with a solution, and I think you'll help with that.
Yep.
That'll be good.
Absolutely.
Fine. Are we good on this item at this time? No more questions?
Yes,
Okay, very good,
excellent.
thank you all. Sorry to
Very good.
take so long on that, but that's pretty important. Moving on now to another, hopefully a briefer discussion. Number 8, the benefits of connectivity of new developments. This is probably the one that I called you about.
It is.
I'm sorry.
This is the one I'm prepared for.
I'm sorry, Jerome. I get so excited about things. Yeah, once again, what we're looking at here is we're having a lot of new subdivisions come in, and to talk about, should we or shouldn't we require connectivity, and I'll be clear, of new subdivisions. We're not talking at this time about connecting any old subdivisions with a new one or old to old, just new. Go ahead, Jerome.
Yeah, John, if I could get the overhead. I just prepared a couple of examples of some of the areas in the parish right now, and just to look at this is kind of a super block area. At the very top is Highway 931, Highway 44, 621, and Roddy Road. And the arrows I've drawn on this map shows all these subdivisions with one way in and one way out. All right, so you don't really see any interconnectivity between these subdivisions in any of these areas, basically. I mean, and so here's another one that was recently done. This is Shadows of Ascension. And you can see this one project, dead ends right here, it comes up here. This road ties into it, and it all bleeds into Parker Road, you know. And so is on this side of Shadows of Ascension as well. So you don't really have much interconnectivity between these subdivisions. What we have been doing as staff and looking at this and working with our engineering review agency, if I can get up there, John, again, we have been requiring this. And this is the new Oaks on the Bluff Phase 3 project. And you can see here, this project is connecting in by this road, which is the Phase 2 of Oaks on the Bluff. But we've also required them to put this little stub out right here on this section, so that if this parcel ever develops, we're deading in right here, and we will require that subdivision to connect to this one. So we will get interconnectivity on that one. This is one I think that Councilmember Casso is familiar with. This is the new Belle Savon off of Highway 73. And the road connects to 73 right here with a big boulevard. Belle Savon Avenue was designed and is being constructed with 2 traffic circles, one here, one here. And the idea here is that it's going to connect, if we can get the property, and we are working with DOTD right now, for it to connect into Bluff Road. All right, so we will have a through street from 73 to Bluff Road, hopefully, when that thing comes through. Here's the one that was up before you guys recently, and this is the one where we discussed with you trying to acquire the connection here, and that one didn't move very forward. But on this one, when this Parker Place Estates subdivision was put together, there was what we refer to as a spite strip across here, and it basically hindered us from making that connection between the 2 projects. We have, that isn't allowed in our code right now, and I don't know how this one got through. It was under the previous administration, and but right now we're making them connect in to this project right here, which is the future Brookstone project. So we're making them provide us a stub out to this point, and we will connect in with the Brookstone Road when this project gets moving. Here's another one. This is Cambry Oaks, and this project will have a connection here right now, and this one right here at a future date to a subdivision that's going to be developed on here. What we have required them to do when the final plat has been developed and we go through the plan check process is they have to make a note on the final plat that says this will be a future connection, right? So that way we can get this down the road. So those are the things that we're doing on a staff level and going before the Planning Commission to make sure this takes place, right?
Councilwoman Cazza.
Yes. Jerome, would you explain the benefits of this connectivity?
Well, the
I know that
benefit-
they're almost limitless, but there are, and certainly there are some disadvantages, but what are the benefits? And so that the public can understand it.
Well, the benefits are basically trying to take some of the traffic off the major roads. Because in that first set of aerial photographs I showed you with all the arrows just going in one direction, everything's piling off onto one of the state highways. And so if we can get the connection between one subdivision to another subdivision to another subdivision, you know, we're basically taking some of the traffic, not all, and maybe not a majority of it, but some of the traffic is being diverted internally to the subdivisions and not on the major roads. And that's the benefit of it. And so it hopefully will provide some relief to the traffic situation.
I would elaborate, if you will, please, on school buses and all, the ability to come in and go through and pick up children without having to make circles and come back.
Right.
It's just wear and tear on our roads that's unnecessary.
And a perfect example of that is some of the garbage trucks. You know, we're getting a lot of, feedback from property owners with, we got some subdivisions that might have 2 or 3 different garbage trucks providers. And they're all traveling down the street, going in one direction and coming out the same direction. So there is a definite benefit to having this.
Emergencies,
Emergency
ambulances.
vehicles, yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and look, I get it. An older subdivision, we don't want to go there. We've not been successful.
Mm-hmm.
But as we build subdivisions in the future, we're just going to have to make people aware that you're going to connect.
Right.
And that's the only way we're going to move forward.
Yeah, I think the point I was trying to make tonight, showing you the example of where we have some problems, but we are working in that and on a staff level and on the planning level, and we're trying to plan for that in the future, and we are requiring that as of the development community right now. So.
And I guess the
Councilman
biggest thing, what Mr. Terry is saying too, is awareness. You know, the new subdivisions, they buy into a new subdivision, they know there's a connectivity could happen in the future.
Right.
And that's why I don't work on an old subdivision. It really throws a hardship up there. But they, again, not just on the plat, whoever buys these homes need to know up front that there could be a connectivity, especially, you know, right next to them.
Right.
You know, the awareness has to be there, and it has to be not just on the plat, because a lot of people buy a home in the subdivision, probably might not even look at the plat.
Right.
They just want this house.
Right.
I'm buying this house. I mean, might not even look at the plat.
You know,
I think
if I may
Yeah.
answer that, Todd, I mean, look, if you buy in a subdivision and you see a side street and it goes to a pasture, you might ought to consider that it's not there for you to go look at the cows.
Right.
That it's there
Yeah.
to connect to that
I know
pasture
it's not assuming,
when it's
though.
not a pasture.
We don't want to assume, that's the big
Well,
thing.
but that's not our responsibility overall. It is the responsibility of
developer.
buyers to look at the neighborhood. And I understand that people sometimes don't look, so I asked Jerome, I said, look, when we get to the end of Belle Sylvain, let's put up a big sign that says, future connection to Bluff Road, so that everybody that buys along that boulevard can't say a year from now, or 2 years from now, or however long this takes, I didn't know that there was going to be a connection there, even though they see that stub out going into a pasture. I think people have to, look, people that are buying in Ascension Parish are not stupid. These are smart people. They know how to look around, and we're going to have to count on the fact, and we're not raising a bunch of stupid people either. And so we have people to look at their surroundings and understand that connectivity is going to happen. And as we go forward, I don't think this is going to be a major worry as it becomes the accepted standard that subdivisions will connect. I get it that you don't want to connect the old ones, but anything going forward, we need to really consider that that's in our best interest and the people's best interest, that these subdivisions be connected.
Councilman Cluett?
Yeah, real quick. Hey, I'm with it. We've been talking about this for years. Hell, your predecessor talked about that, the connectivity. We've had some major battles right there at that podium. We've had one of our developers / surveyor that came up, and he said the best subdivision you ever built was a one road subdivision, and the best lot was all the way at the end. So people like that little niche, but I don't have a problem with it. And I'm gonna tell you, we talked about what we want to put for the original plat, what we want to put, we want the developer to cover on the original sale. I'm gonna go and refer back to River Highlands, where probably the original out there by the diversion canal, the original homeowners who bought the land and built the house first, they knew everything about that's a private road. They knew what was this HOA situation, what was the stipulations, what were the rules and what weren't rules, all right? But then 5 years, 7 years later, they turned around and sold it, and you got a 20-year cycle of a area like that with a greater than 50% home turnover. You're on owner number 3.
Right.
They don't have a clue. Hell, they drive down the road. This looks good.
Yep.
Yeah, I like this place. I'm gonna buy it. It's not being There's no homeowners association established, so there's not a lot that's being given to them, information up front. The realtors, I'm not saying they're not giving it to them, but, you know, hey, maybe or maybe not.
Right.
But they marketing a home for sale. So people are buying into thinking that everything is taken care of, and it's not. So I'm all right with going forward with this. I know what you said earlier, we haven't had much luck. Ms. Caswell said, we haven't had much luck in the past. We've had some pretty good battles right there at that podium for people that thought that somebody was gonna cut into their neighborhood. And, so, wish you luck.
Councilman Cavallotti? Nope. I just have one question. If a developer at this time currently says, no, I'm not gonna do connectivity, can we force them to? Or do we need an ordinance or a change to the LDC or
I
anything
think they're
like that?
requiring that outlet.
Yeah, we're requiring that at the planning commission stage.
Yeah.
That's been something we've been putting on the plats. And I don't know that there's any way we can require them to dead end to their property line. Now, when the other development that abuts that one, we can require them to tie into it.
Okay,
So that's how we're working that right now.
Thank you.
thank you.
Right.
Glad we're moving that direction. Okay, moving on to item number 9, department report, Mike Enlow. Enslow.
Enslow.
Okay, not a whole lot has changed since our last meeting, so I just put the updates in red if you want to take a look at them. The main thing I want to mention is RJ Daigle is pretty much finished with task 1 through 3. So we'll be issuing task 4 for Jeanette real soon. So that's what we discussed during the drainage board meeting. So that's what I want to mention. If you want to take a look at this, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, if y'all take a look, and if not, we don't have to go through everything. I don't have any questions.
I can go with it.
What's that? No, I'm finished. If nobody has any questions.
Do we have any questions?
I'll give it to Mike.
Nope, okay.
There's
Yeah,
nothing real.
not
Mr.
much,
Enslow.
not much has, not much has changed since Donaldsonville, was it 2 Thursdays ago?
Yeah, it was yesterday, huh?
Yeah.
Just about, yes, sir. If nobody has any questions, I'll move into the Move Ascension update.
Excellent.
All right, we're trying to change this up and keep this interesting. We'll start to bring you guys some more, maybe visuals, charts and stuff to see as this design is starting to get closer to end and getting into some construction. I know it's what everybody's interested in, but be as it may, I'm going to go through this right now. The consultant design contracts, 22 contracts have been issued. Task orders have been issued to the 11 contract consultants. Most of the contract consultants, a few of them have maybe the same surveyor or the same subsurface utility engineer, but for the most part, they all have a variety of different subconsultants. There's anywhere from 20 to 25 different engineering firms that are realizing work from these 22 contracts. So I just wanted to point that out. The US 61 signal timing, DOTD is, like I said, the district, District 61 is working on all this. We're giving them the information. They're inputting this and doing it all in-house. There's only two gentlemen up there working on everything, so they've got the work cut out for them. But this is, it's getting near completion. Phase 2 will be complete in another month and a half. So we're really looking forward to that, seeing how it helps out with traffic. The LA1, LA3089 signal timing, again, they're just shorthanded, but they have all the information, and they're implementing it this month over there in Donaldsonville. So we're anxious to see how that operates, and then part of the contract for the CDC is to go back and look at the changes and see how it's operating and make any suggestions for any other changes. So, again, we have the individual contract status report attached. That's item number 4. That's in the back. We can go to that in the end if you guys have any questions on that. It's basically just a percentage for each of the tasks that the consultants are working on. As you'll see, we're getting very close on a lot of this, the right-of-way acquisition, which is where we want to be, right? So, other ongoing projects that we're tracking through Move Ascension, but maybe have been in the works for a long time. Roddy Road at Church Point Roundabout. Again, DOTD is committing $1 million to construction. DOTD will let that after we get the right-of-way acquisition and utility relocations completed. The Babin Road Bridge replacement design and the right-of-way map is 100% complete. DOTD is funding $650,000 to that. That's part of the off-system bridge project. LA 3127, again, this is not a Move Ascension project, but we're just monitoring it and putting it in this update. They're moving forward. They're about a week or 2 ahead of schedule, and they're working towards getting the property surveys and the base right-of-way maps. We're going to get to just that point and stop, and we talk with DOTD. If we're going to get the federal government involved, the FHWA, we're going to have to purchase the right-of-way in a certain manner, which is going to take a whole new environmental, not a new, but a updated environmental process. So there's steps to take, and we're going about the right way, and it's coming right along. Right-of-way acquisition, where Ashland St. Landry's done. They're moving along on Roddy Road, Henry, 929, and Parker Road Roundabout. The Roddy Road from 931 to 933 is on hold. As you may have recalled, we discussed reducing the scope to some intersections that had a lot of safety hits or some crash data that we saw some cost savings there. So we'll be identifying those or moving towards getting those that right-of-way purchase for those intersections and safety points. Let's see, environmental permitting. We've got we've been moving, everything's been good with environmental permitting. We got permit for the Roddy Road portion from 661 to 621, and I think we're moving closer to getting a lot more full project permitting done. Anytime we buy new property, we have to get a permit through the Corps of Engineers, even though it's a road. So it's just the way it is, and they're actually coming along faster now that we've got a couple underway. So construction, I don't know if any of you have been down St. Landry or Ashland, but you can kind of see through the trees that we're getting it cleared and grubbed right now. I don't imagine they'll be too much longer out there. It's I went out there today. It's a little wet to take the truck all the way through, but it's getting to that point you can drive a side-by-sider all the way through. So get out there and take pictures now if you want to see it like it was naturally, because it's not going to, it'll be done soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's important.
The next bullet item is construction projects that will potentially be let in 2019, which is, they're all part of the projects we've been talking about here. Roddy Road, Church Point, Roddy Road Roundabout, the 929 Parker Roundabout, 930 Safety Widening, which is the new one, 930 at Henry Road Roundabout, the turn lanes at 73, which is just as important as all these. They're small, but we're going to try to get those knocked out. 929 at Bro Road Roundabout, the Bro Road in Germany Roundabout, 930 and Henry, that's on there twice. We're just going to do one of those, though. And the 929 and 930 roundabout. So we'll get you a nice graphic and show all these projects and start bringing it to the meeting and putting it on the overhead so everybody can have these a graphic in mind.
Councilwoman Kessler.
Yes, ma'am.
While we're at this point, I'd like to make mention that on August the 28th at 6 o'clock at Scott Sylvie's house, so my folks who live on Seaboro Road all know where Scott Sylvie's house is. He's the guy that has the great backyard with the wonderful parties. He has invited us to be there, and you guys are all coming. Mike Enlow will be there. Jeffrey Durst will be there. Gosh.
I'll invite the rest of DPW if he'd like.
Don't, Scott won't like that.
Okay.
But, we're going to talk about the Seaboro Road safety widening and help the folks to understand the progress on that that's been made and let them have some final input on right before final design is complete. Jared Monsu will also be there. So this seemed like a great opportunity for me to mention it while folks on Seaboro Road are watching August the 28th, 6 o'clock at Scott Sylvie's.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Real quick, while we're talking about that, as far as when we need to have public meetings, I know one of the big concerns is right away how much we're going to take. I've had a lot of questions on that on Henry Road. Can you let us know when the best time would be, when we can actually go to the public, set up a meeting? If we do it now, it's too early on Henry Road, but just for some of these projects, if you would.
Sure. So, after we get to the final design, and it'd be a good time. We're close on Henry. Yeah, so they're listed at 40% final, but that number's gonna move quickly to 100% soon, so, I'll be in touch with you and we can schedule something and then, and maybe at the middle school there would be good. We can talk about, all of the projects in that area. Once we get to a point where we know the sequencing of construction, the two roundabouts, 930 and Henry, I think everybody would be very interested in that. So we'll be in touch with you and whoever else to set up a meeting, if you like.
Okay, very good.
Yep. And that goes for anybody else and any other projects.
Councilman Cagliati.
Yeah, revert back to the Roddy Road, Church Point roundabout.
Yes, sir.
I say where it's in final design phase.
Yes, sir.
How much longer before?
Not much longer. We have an item on here to add lighting to the consultant's contract, but again, the thing to keep in mind on that one is sequence of construction with the other segments of Roddy that are going to be widened. So, and again, that one is funded by federal funds through DOTD. So it's a little different, but it's close.
So when they get the final design done, we'll know whether it's going to exceed $1 million because they'll see where we're responsible for anything over $1 million.
Correct. That and utility relocations and all that kind of stuff, so.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
I'll
No,
go,
I think we're good.
one of the things I wanted to mention, we talked a little bit about road transfer. That's something that's been on here. If you look back on all the meetings going back, the HNTB's been continuing to do an analysis of that. You heard Jamie talk about the map that DOTD does. DOTD took a shot. They did it with everybody. Here's your map. Here's the roads that we want to turn over to you. So they're analyzing that. There are some that are better than others to do now, and we can negotiate with DOTD about that. So I just wanted to make that point. Looking at that map, it's public information. You can get on the website. We're not just going to take their word for all these things. We're looking at them and make sure they're a good fit if we do decide that. Just wanted to make that clear. That's it for the Move Ascension update. If you guys want to talk about any specifics on the list, I mean, I don't know. I want to put this up here. John, can you do the overhead projector here for the?
Got it.
All right.
Answer my question.
So that's your 22 task orders that have been written since, I believe, September. So that's a lot. It's a lot of projects. I just want everybody to see that. We kind of blow through these all the time, and we don't have a lot of time to talk about them, but it's a lot of work. This is a lot of stuff we've gotten out. So very proud of it and proud of our team, and thank you all for letting us, move ahead on this. I want to thank the parish president and the administration, the finance department, purchasing department. I mean, those are the people that don't get recognized, and they're the ones, I keep Dawn on her toes, and she's great with finance. So I want to really thank them, and just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, moving on. Item number 10, approval to amend contract with CH Fenstermaker by $9,350, is that correct?
No, it's not. I appreciate you stopping. The actual amount is 9,960. For some reason, I sent that incorrectly, and it was transposed incorrectly by myself.
Motion.
so.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. No objections, so moved. Moving on to item number 11. Motion to adjourn, Councilman Cagnalotti. No objections.